Why, hello everyone, how are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge, in particular, a Doom the Dark Ages survival challenge. You guys knew it was coming, but the wait is over. It is finally here. Now, if you're new to the channel, you might not know the long history that I have with the Doom franchise and the many Doom videos that I have. But for people who've been here a while, you know that it's kind of not fair, right? Like, I make Doom survival challenges and no one to this day has been able to overcome the Doom challenges because, well, they're just too goddamn strong. But Doom the Dark Ages came out, which is a prequel to all the other series, and the creatures and characters within the series are significantly weaker than Doom Eternal, so they might actually stand a chance. Isn't this exciting? This is so exciting. So we're going to do things a little differently here than we have been in the past. In the past, when I made the Doom videos, it was always, can they survive the Doom demonic invasion? And really the reason why that is because the demons were the only faction that we really knew enough about for me to actually make a survival challenge about. However, Doom the Dark Ages goes into way more depth about how Argentinor and the Night Sentinels do their whole thing. So this video is going to be a reverse of the norm. Instead of it being, can these civilizations survive a Doom demonic invasion, it's going to be, can the Night Sentinels and all of their planets, because it's more than one planet, we don't know how many they have, but it's quite a few different planets, can they survive an invasion from these other alien beings and successfully fight them off in a way that they were not able to for the Doom demons? God, I fucking love talking about new shit. Let's do it. Now, one thing I should probably clarify before we begin, Doom the Dark Ages literally just came out, so if you're watching this video kind of scared that there might be a lot of spoilers here, not really. I mean, this video isn't going to be going over the story and the characters and all this sort of that little detail kind of stuff that we'd see in the Dark Ages. It's mostly going over technological advancements and what they can do in battle and things like that. How do they defend their planets? The vast majority of the information I'm going to give you here are going to be stuff that we already found out about in Doom Eternal by reading those codexes, and then the Dark Ages might have given us a little more detail on it or kind of fleshed it out a bit more, but no massive story spoilers, just kind of minor stuff that you might read in the codexes of the Dark Ages. So if you absolutely don't want any, like 100% no spoilers whatsoever, then I guess you'd click off, but I'm really not planning on spoiling all that much or anything that's really gonna make your enjoyment of the game any lesser. So you can kind of relax, sit back, and just enjoy the video, not worry too much about that. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But I've wasted enough of your time. Let's get started. So first things first, we gotta tell you a little bit about the Night Sentinels, the beings in which our invaders will have to overcome in order to win this challenge that I am deciding to throw them in. So billions and billions of years ago, there was a group of extremely primitive humans on a planet known as Sentinel Prime. One day, they were visited by a bunch of interdimensional traveling cosmic god beings known as the Wraiths that then decided to, just for shits and giggles, guide the direction of their entire race and basically become their gods for like a bunch of years until they just fucked off. This society of humans under the guidance of the Wraiths eventually became what we know of to be the Night Sentinels. And that's the first big reveal we get in Doom the Dark Ages. For the longest time, as I've been making these videos, I've been talking about the Night Sentinels as if they are completely different race or species than humans. They just look like humans, kind of like how Kryptonians look like humans but aren't humans. No, it is confirmed in Doom the Dark Ages they are in fact human. They're just humans that are significantly more technologically advanced than we are, as well as being physically far more powerful due to genetic tampering and being enhanced with the magics that came from the Wraiths. They are cosmic god enhanced humans, basically. So society is kind of like if you took Spartans with the Roman Empire and some Vikings and just threw them all together and made this sort of insanely powerful warrior-like race. That's basically what the Night Sentinels are. And as far as what they're actually capable of, a lot. Like, they're stupidly fucking powerful. Not only are they fast enough to dodge attacks from basically any projectile in the entire game, this would not only include things like heavy machine guns and shotguns and rifles and all that kind of stuff, it would also include weapons that utilize electric-based attacks as well as light-based attacks. They are very fucking fast. In terms of strength, they are physically strong enough to fight against the most powerful of demons, as well as damage those demons. This is particularly impressive given that no human in all of Earth, in the UAC when the demons invaded Earth, none of their weapons were capable of damaging a Baron of Hell at all. Their guns literally didn't work against them. So the fact that Sentinels are physically strong enough to essentially box Barons of Hell show that they are really fucking strong. You also have the fact that all of their weapons are enhanced with Wraith energy, which is essentially a force of chaos that allows them to break the laws of physics. This is why they're capable of killing beings like the Barons of Hell as well as the Titans using things like guns and swords and all sorts of things because they're powered by Wraith energy. As far as how strong Wraith energy is, we don't 100% entirely know, However, Hugo Martin did say after the release of Doom Eternal that he doesn't intend to ever reveal what's stronger between Wraith energy or Argent energy. He made them so that they can basically be like the dark side and light side of the Doom universe, and he finds it more interesting that we don't entirely know all of the powers and the exact minutia of how each of those power systems work. He actually compares it to Star Wars and says that the light side and dark side of the Force in Star Wars was more interesting in the original movie when there was a lot of mystery around exactly how they worked. The longer Star Wars went on and the more they began to explain how the two sides of the Force worked, the less interesting he believed they got, so he intends on keeping Wraith energy and Argent energy as mysterious as humanly possible. And while that does make it difficult for us to determine how strong Wraith energy is, it does allow us to say that it is the equal and opposite of Argent energy and should be able to do not necessarily whatever Argent energy can do, but be equally as strong as Argent energy, just in its own sort of way with its own kind of powers and shit. And considering that Argent energy is completely indestructible and weapons made with Argent can slice through literally anything, it essentially has durability negation, we can just kind of come to the assumption that Wraith energy weapons also essentially have durability negation and should be able to defend against literally anything. And when I say anything, I literally do mean anything. It can defend against the most powerful weapons in the entire game, including the BFG. If you're fighting Marauder in Doom Eternal and you fire the BFG releases these tendrils that actually phase through solid objects to get to their biological targets. The only thing that it can't phase through in the entire game is an Argent energy shield that the Marauder uses. So not only is Argent energy completely indestructible, it can't even be phased through by attacks that specifically go through solid objects. And again, while we don't get 100% confirmation that Wraith energy can do this as well, it makes sense that it can do this since it is designed to be the equal and opposite of Argent energy. So what you end up having here is a massive warrior society that spans who knows how many planets. We don't actually know. We know it's a multi-planetary species, but we're not exactly sure how many planets. But we also know that every single person in this entire society is raised to be a warrior. They're all superhuman. They all have shields, melee weapons, and guns that specifically negate durability and are indestructible. And this doesn't include characters like Valen, King Novik, and Thera, who are considerably more powerful than the average Sentinel. Thera, more specifically, completely dwarfs the powers of all the other Sentinels, and this is where I kind of have to get into a little bit of a spoiler, so if you want to skip ahead a little bit, do that. But basically, Thera is a conduit for Wraith power. She has the full powers of a Wraith inside her body, Wraiths being chaos gods. At one point, you actually go to the home universe of the Wraiths, and literal physics and gravity and time just straight up don't work the same way it works anywhere else, because the power of the Wraiths can defy and alter the very laws of all of those kind of things. It's chaos. It's fucking chaos power, and she has this inside her body to utilize to its full extent. Having said that, by the end of the game, she still doesn't know how to use it fully. She just found out she even has them, and the only thing she was really capable of doing is making like spectral tentacles that kill her enemies for her. But she should have the full power of a god inside of her body. On top of all the crazy physical enhancement shit they got going on, they also have extremely advanced technology, to the point that I would say that they're probably one of the most advanced species that we've seen in definitely gaming. Probably not like novels and shit, but gaming, I would say, yeah, they're probably one of the most advanced. Not only do they have your basic shit like massive 30-story mechs, giant cannons and tanks, ships that can travel all across the universe and lay waste to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people at a time, all of which powered by Wraith energy, meaning they're going to have the same durability negative effects that their swords, axes, and hammers do. But that's not the reason I'm saying that they're one of the most advanced species. That's like I said, pretty basic. The thing that really makes them impressive is actually something that I kind of have to make a correction of things that I've said in the past. So in the past, I've said the demons have a specific rule that they can't just enter any universe they want. They have to specifically be invited. That's the way it works in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal and all the previous games. Someone had to open up a door from their side to allow the demons in, and I just assumed that this was a limitation the demons had and not a strength of the humans. I was wrong. It's confirmed at the very beginning of Doom the Dark Ages that the Sentinels created a trans-dimensional barrier that wrapped around their entire universe and stopped the demons from traveling into our universe. The only demons that are in the Dark Ages are the demons that were let in by corrupted Sentinels who betrayed the Sentinels to let the demons through. Not only is this incredibly impressive for the Sentinels because they have the technology to create a barrier around their entire universe to stop trans-dimensional beings from invading, but it's also a massive power-up for the demons in the future, as the demons no longer need to be invited into universes. They actually can go to whatever universe they want. They just can't go to our universe because the Sentinels already made this barrier. This is a massive, massive, massive power-up for the demons, and in future challenges where I use the demons, I can essentially get rid of the whole concept of them needing to be invited in, and they can just freely fucking flood any universe they want with as many demons as they want without any resistance, unless that universe can make a technology that can keep them out like the Sentinels did. This also confirms something else that we weren't aware of. Argentinur, Sentinel Prime, all of these places all exist within the same universe as Earth. All of the humans are from the same universe. Sentinel Prime is just another planet that you can fly to from Earth in the Doom universe, whereas in the past we've always assumed that it was a totally different universe. While they don't directly say in the Dark Ages they're the same universe, them explaining how the trans-dimensional barrier works confirms that Earth has to be there too, because the demons have to follow the same rules to invade Earth that they do for Sentinel Prime, which would only be the case if they both were located in the same universe. This is all a lot of new, really cool information, and the fact that the Sentinels can create a technology that forms a barrier around their entire universe means that they are unbelievably advanced. Essentially, we see the Sentinels being able to make pretty much any technology they need in order to overcome the demons. They have to deal with 30-story tall demon titans. They create 30-story tall Atlan mechs. They have an enemy that's invading from outside of their universe. They create a technology that creates a barrier that keeps them out. And the energy that they use in order to create all these things is used by alternate dimensional chaos magic energy that can break the laws of physics, meaning what they should be capable of creating could be potentially limitless. We also know by Doom Eternal that the Night Sentinels only fall because Valen betrays them and allows an opening for the demons to come in and flood the entire planet when they weren't expecting it, after they had already thought they had won. If it wasn't for that, the Sentinels actually probably would have not necessarily defeated and overcome the demons, but I mean won in the sense that they beat them out of the universe and was able to keep them out permanently. Valen really fucked it up for a lot of people. And lastly, we need to talk about the most powerful force that the Night Sentinels have, that being Doomguy. Now, if you haven't played the game, you don't want any spoilers, just skip to the next section of the video. There's going to be timestamps because there's really no way of me talking about Doomguy's powers and what he can do in this game without me spoiling some stuff. So yeah, if you don't care, keep watching because there's some really cool shit that he does in this game. But if you do, don't do that. So first off, let's be clear. Doomguy is nowhere near as powerful in Doom the Dark Ages as he is in Doom Eternal, which is why this is probably going to be a lot more fun to talk about. But the stuff he can do is unbelievably impressive. Basically, just give him all the same physical and crazy over-the-top powers that he has in Eternal, just lessen them to an extreme degree. He can be harmed, he can be controlled, things do happen to him. At the beginning of the game, when you start off, Doomguy is actually being controlled by the makers using their technology. And they're actually helpful enough to explain exactly how this mind control works. They're not actually controlling him. They're just erasing portions of his mind, everything but hatred for the demons. Essentially, Doomguy becomes a shell of a person to which only the desire to kill demons exists. By doing this, they can then just launch Doomguy down to the planet when the demons are there, and he'll go around slaughtering all the demons and not really doing anything else, not worrying about helping Sentinels or attacking Sentinels. He just doesn't care. None of that exists. He's just going straight for the demons. Now, this would normally go against the whole he cannot be mind controlled or corrupted thing that I've talked at length about in the past, but it actually doesn't. Again, this is a prequel. He is not at his full power here, but also it is specifically stated in this game that they have to keep upping the power of control that they are using to overcome him, because every time they do it, he adapts to it. And it gets to a point where they need to use so much power that he just straight up can't be controlled. They end up using so much power to control him that it nearly destroys their whole fucking ship, which is this giant fortress in the sky. After he overcomes the control, he still has the little control thing on his chest that is supposed to be controlling him. It's still there, and he later goes to the cosmic realm and is then trapped in this barrier by 3 psychic gods. It is specifically stated by Hugo Martin that the cosmic realm has psychics, and they use psionic and psychic energies to fight. 3 different gods from this realm trap him in this barrier, and Doomguy uses the energy on his chest, this mind control energy that the makers created to control him, to overpower and defeat all 3 of these gods at the same time, breaking their barrier. That's how much energy was used trying to control Doomguy's mind. The energy to overpower 3 gods 3 cosmic gods, and it was no longer able to control him. This shows a couple things. One, very, very, very resistant to mind control, but also that he adapts and grows stronger depending on what you introduce him to. At the beginning of the game, he was able to be controlled. By like 4 or 5 levels in, it doesn't matter how much energy they use, they can't do shit to him at all. Mind control basically becomes entirely useless. Another power that we're introduced to in this game that actually didn't exist in Doom Eternal, so it's pretty cool, is his shield. His shield at one point in the game gets a specific rune attached to it that allows it to absorb different magical energies and then copy those magics, being able to utilize those against his opponents. He's also shown being able to absorb energies from multiple different universes. As he absorbs an energy from Hell, he absorbs energy from Argent and Nor, and he absorbs energy from the Cosmic Realm, being able to utilize all 3 of their magics. This could mean potentially that if he comes across any other universes that utilize magic, his shield could essentially absorb those magics and then utilize them himself when he fights against other characters. The last power that he has that we're introduced to in the Dark Ages that we didn't have before would be, he dies in this game. Yeah, I told you there's gonna be spoilers. I mean, it's your fault. Why are you still here? Yeah, he straight up dies. He actually gets killed, and we've always questioned in the past what would happen if Doomguy would die. We know. Once he dies, Azaric sends his soul to Hell so that it can then be utilized, probably turned into Argent, possibly even corrupted and turned into a demon. We don't really know what they're going to do with his soul, but basically his soul fights back. He fights back against all the demons, murders a bunch of them, and escapes Hell on his own and just resurrects himself. Now, I know there's going to be people who play this game who are going to disagree with me, but those people were not paying attention to the game. So basically what ends up happening is Valen gets a bunch of people together to use demonic magic to bring Doomguy back to life. And a lot of people are going to say that, well, Doomguy didn't escape Hell, he was brought back by Valen. Again, I would say this is you not paying attention to the story. The story very clearly says that using demonic magic to bring someone back to life permanently changes them and corrupts them automatically. They never come back the same, and we played through a whole level where Doomguy fights through all of Hell to escape. By our perspective, we know that Doomguy escaped on his own, and Valen using the magic was not what brought him back. Also, this is a really, really good character moment, probably my favorite moment in the entire game. Valen tries to use demonic magic in order to bring Doomguy back. When Doomguy awakens, he gets out of his coffin and he sees the demonic circle, and he looks at Valen with just pure anger. He is very pissed off that Valen tried to use demonic magic to bring him back. This does a couple of things. One, this is just in Doomguy's character to do this, as he understands demonic magic and what it does in a way that Valen doesn't. But also, this is fantastic foreshadowing for Valen, as in Doom Eternal, we know that Valen eventually betrays the Night Sentinels and uses demonic magic to try and bring his son back to life, which is what causes the demons to be able to invade and kill off all the Sentinels. This is a really good character moment between Valen and Doomguy, and foreshadows an extremely important event that's going to happen in the future. If you've played through the whole series, make a note of this. Valen is clearly shown here to be willing to use demonic magic to get the things that he wants. And all of this is shown to us without any dialogue, just through visual storytelling. Doom doesn't often have amazing writing, but this scene is really fucking good. Now, other than those 3 things, I think pretty much everything else Doomguy has is the same. I think the only other thing that I didn't bring up is dragons. The Sentinels have dragons. They can fly around with dragons and breathe fire, and a lot of times they fight off the back of dragons. I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah, I think I covered everything. So let's get on to the actual challenges, shall we? First up on the chopping block, we have the Flood from Halo. Now, I've talked about the Flood a couple times before, so I'm going to give a relatively quick explanation here and not go too much into detail, but basically, if you've seen a number of fiction and aliens and shit, you'll know that there's usually an alien that's based on spores that can come in and corrupt people and turn them into mutated monstrosities that just go on the warpath and infect more people, and the whole thing is that it's just this really dangerous, horrible infection that you can't get away from. The Flood is that, but times like 20,000. Not only is the infection unbelievably potent and spreads like crazy, but they also have this thing called the Logic Plague, which is very vaguely defined, but essentially they have the ability to not only transfer via air and touch and all the other normal ways that diseases and shit can spread, but it can also transfer via data and technological shit. Like, for instance, if we had the Flood here in our real world, they would be able to infect your computer, then hook up to the internet, and then infect a bunch of other different computers, and now they're just in the system and we can't get rid of them. This is not only dangerous to us in real life, but particularly so to sci-fi universes, because essentially they can turn all of your weapons and technology against you. They also don't have to necessarily take over technology that have a computer chip inside of it, as they could just take over any sort of loosely defined form of technology and it just becomes a part of the Flood. They can also multiply their intelligence as it spreads, as the Flood is just one massive hive mind that gets smarter and smarter and smarter. So 2 people smarter than 1, 3 people smarter, whatever. If it hits into the internet, it has all of the intelligence that exists on the internet, and it just keeps growing until it becomes this massive godlike being called the Grave Mind, or even eventually a Key Mind, that is essentially as smart as you could possibly be, that knows all things and just wants to continue to spread and, you know, put its horror upon other people. So if the Flood arrived to Argent Noor, how big of a threat would it be to the Night Sentinels? And I think it's not going to be as big of a threat as people think it will be. And I say this for a couple of reasons. For one, the Night Sentinels are already shown to have a pretty high resistance to most forms of corruption. The fact that they can resist the demonic corruption for many, many years, even though the demonic corruption is absolute and spreads across an entire infinite multiverse non-stop, is pretty goddamn impressive. The Night Sentinels are human, but they're not just human. They're kind of like human wraith hybrids, sort of. Not exactly hybrids, but they have like wraithness in them. You know, like 5% wraith species. This gives them a lot of cool, crazy powers. Yes, it makes them physically stronger, but it also makes them highly resistant to the demonic corruption. And while it is possible for them to be corrupted, it does take a while. It's not an instantaneous thing. And truth be told, the demonic corruption is significantly more potent and more powerful than the corruption that the Flood has. While the Flood does affect your biology and it fucks with your mind and your body and all that, it doesn't fuck with your soul itself, which the demonic corruption does, as well as it being heavily magic based. Whereas the Flood, while it acts in a way that I guess you could define as magic, it's very clearly defined in the series as not being magic. It's just a science that is so advanced that we don't understand it, and it kind of appears to be magic. But it's not magic, it's all scientific. There is no magic in the Halo universe. This means that when the Flood comes down, it's arguable whether or not it would actually be able to infect the Sentinels, and if it does infect the Sentinels, it would likely take a very, very long time to infect a single Sentinel, as opposed to in the Halo universe where it's basically instantly infects everybody. In Halo, there is no massive society of people that can all resist corruption to the same degree the Night Sentinels can. You also have the fact that Night Sentinel armor actually completely covers their entire body and is sealed to the point that they can actually fight in space and shit. And it's created using magically enhanced materials that are significantly more powerful than any material you would be able to find here on Earth. This would also mean the Flood would likely not be able to get in the suits to actually infect them on a large scale. Even if they try to damage them and break the seal of that armor, it's arguable that they would be able to do that due to just how durable it is. And the last thing that'll give the Sentinels a bit of advantage here is the fact that the Flood is extremely susceptible to heat, whereas the Sentinels are actually extremely resistant to heat, and many of their weapons, I'd probably say like 60 to 70% of their weapons, utilize extreme levels of heat. So the majority of the Sentinel arsenal is essentially firing the Flood's kryptonite at them, which for obvious reasons is super, super bad for the Flood. So does that mean the Flood is getting immediately wiped out, no questions asked? No, because they can affect technology. If they're capable of getting into and taking over, say, the Atlan's or the Sentinel communication systems or their warships or anything like that, then the Sentinels are going to have some serious fucking problems. Now, this still wouldn't be the end of their whole situation, because even though the Atlan's were created to fight against the Titans, that's not the only thing that can fight against the Titans. The Sentinels' dragons that they ride into battle are also shown being strong enough to fight against the Titans. So if the Atlan's were made to fight against the Titans on par, and the dragons are shown defeating the Titans as well, that should mean that the dragons could fight against the Atlan's. So if the Atlan's get Flood infected and turn on the Sentinels, they should actually be able to jump in their dragons and still fight against their own Atlan's and survive. And it's questionable whether or not the Flood can actually take over the dragons, seeing as the dragons are extremely hot. They're dragons. They have very hot insides. They're hot on the outside, they're hot on the inside. Due to the Flood's weakness to heat, I don't think it's very likely that their cells and their infection would be able to survive inside the body of a dragon that is superheated on the inside. I think it'll probably kill the cells basically immediately. So that means that the dragons should have, generally speaking, an immunity, and even if they don't have an immunity, it wouldn't be that difficult for Sentinels to create armor for them that could actually keep that shit out, so that they can properly pilot them and fight against the Atlan's that have now turned on them. You also have the fact that there's no evidence that the Sentinels have any form of internet, so if the Flood actually controls one Atlan, there's no evidence that they can jump from that Atlan immediately into all the other Atlans using any sort of Wi-Fi technology, because the Sentinels aren't shown to have Wi-Fi technology. This is going to vastly slow down the speed of which the Flood can corrupt the Atlans and all of their other technology, as they actually have to go and make physical contact interact with all of the different forms of technology and can't just like ride the internet superhighway across all of it. But lastly, I think the Sentinels are mostly going to dominate the Flood for one main reason. In Halo, the humans were able to dominate the Flood by quarantining one area and then glassing it into non-existence, and they killed all the Flood that way. There's no reason why the Sentinels can't do the exact same thing. They have way better technology than the UNSC has, so I don't really see why when the Flood gets there and starts corrupting things and turning it, and then like even if a whole country or a whole continent gets controlled, why the Sentinels can't just go up into space and just fry an entire area of the planet and save it. It's not even their only planet. They have a whole slew of different planets, so it wouldn't even be that devastated for them to take out one country if the Flood show up there. And again, they would only really be spreading through technology, as all the Sentinels would be resistant to the spread. Even if the Flood were to successfully take over a Sentinel, we know by the lore in Doom the Dark Ages that a lot of their weapons are extremely hot to the touch. This is why I say that the Sentinels have a very, very high resistance to heat. It is specifically stated that Doomguy's shield saw has a ton of heat coming from it due to it being powered by Sentinel energy, and Doomguy has to resist that heat at all times that he's using the shield. The shield saw is not the only weapon that uses Sentinel energy to fight against. A lot of basic bitch Sentinel weapons have that same energy, so they should all have to be dealing with that high level of heat when they're using their guns. Essentially, a normal human should not be able to wield your average Sentinel gun because one, it's going to fire way too strong and blow your fucking arms off, but also there should just be an insane level of heat coming off of them due to Sentinel energy being used to power them. If a Sentinel soldier does get taken over by the Flood, they would literally start getting fried by the actual gun the Sentinel was holding. The Sentinel himself should be kind of left immune to the Flood simply due to the fact that he's holding a gun that should be killing the cells as it tries to infect his body. So yeah, overall, I see the Flood being kind of a nuisance and maybe taking out a decent section of maybe one of the planets, but in the end, they're going to be wiped out relatively quickly because the Sentinels have resistances and defenses for literally every single thing the Flood can do, on top of literally wielding their kryptonite against them. So yeah, Sentinels win. If you're enjoying the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, you join the membership, you get videos early. And don't forget the second channel I started called Rouga's Real House. Basically, anything that's not a survival challenge that I make is going to go there instead of here. There will be a review for Doom the Dark Ages coming up over there, as well as probably a review for Expedition 33, maybe some other videos. I'm currently playing through Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, and once it officially releases, I've been thinking about making a video where I compare it to Skyrim and see which games did what aspects of their game better, since both are so similar. I don't know, I'm still working. Basically, I'm just putting a bunch of random shit on there that I enjoy doing that I can't put here because the algorithm's gonna fuck me. So if you think you might enjoy stuff like that, go check it out. And back to the video. Next up, we have the Imperium of Man from Warhammer 40k. This is gonna be fun. It's always fun talking about Warhammer. Their fans aren't annoying at all. They're amazing. I love them. It's great. So yeah, not even gonna split hairs here. Warhammer 40k fucking loses. They lose bad. I know Warhammer fans think they're the most powerful, ridiculous, over-the-top thing ever, but they're not. I'm sorry. They're not that strong. The Sentinels are better in every single way that you can measure with the exception of numbers. You don't believe me that the Sentinels are better in every way? Fine, let's go over it. Your Space Marines' top speed is 60 miles per hour. They can lift about 5 to 9 tons when they're in their armor. The Custodians can do about 3 times everything what your basic Space Marine can do. That means they can run about 180 miles per hour and lift about 27 tons at maximal. Their heavy bolters are automatic weapons that fire 1 caliber explosive rounds. They have things like power swords and gauntlets and shit that have the ability to weaken the molecular bonds and things that they hit that allow them to cut through it more easily. They do not negate durability, but they do kind of loosen up those molecules. They have guns like the Melta, which is an extremely short-range weapon, basically like a superheated shotgun. It's not a shotgun, it's like a wave of fire. But it's so hot that it can damn near turn steel instantly into soup. They have shit like dreadnoughts that are titanic machine beasts, some of which are larger than skyscrapers. They're huge and they're incredibly powerful. They have psychers that can pull power from the warp to do all kinds of crazy maddening shit, and they have over 1 million worlds that are so super fucking populated that they have single cities that have hundreds of millions of people just in those cities. The sheer number of people they have should completely dwarf anything that the Sentinels have in terms of numbers. Now, while it's true we don't actually know the numbers of Sentinels, we only really know they're a multiplanetary species. We're not just going to suddenly assume that they're that large. They're just some kind of galactic-sized species. It's fine. It's whatever. And on and on and on. Warhammer has so many different crazy things. It's pretty good, right? Doesn't matter. Doom is way better. For one, the Space Marines' physical abilities, even the Custodies' physical abilities, do not come near to touching the average Sentinel in abilities. They're considerably faster. The Custodies can run at 180 miles per hour. The Sentinels are capable of dodging lightning and light-based attacks after they're fired. Doom Guy, before he went into the Divinity Machine, was on par with the physical skills of your average Sentinel, and he's fast enough to outrun his own rockets after he fires them. Space Marines melee weapons at absolute best have the ability to weaken the molecular bonds to make it more easy to cut through things. The Sentinels melee weapons completely negate durability. While we don't know the exact materials that make up the armor of the Sentinels, we do know that they have several materials that exist on their planets that are stated in the lore to be indestructible. Many of their weapons are made out of these metals, which is why the sheer force of how they're firing doesn't completely destroy the gun. This is specifically stated with the super shotgun as well as the accelerator and a couple of other weapons, that the metals that make the weapon have to be so strong because otherwise the force that it releases would just explode any normal type of metal. So they have to have super indestructible metals that then need to be enchanted further to harden those metals. While we don't know what the armor of the Sentinels are made out of, we do know that the armor is also enchanted. This is the reason why many of them glow where the eyes are and stuff, and you can also see the painted runes on the side, much like Doom Guy's shield has runes that specifically allows that shield to absorb magical energies. The Sentinels' weapons and armor have similar runes, which means they all have different magical properties that are given to all of these armors and weapons. So not only is a Night Sentinel physically stronger and faster than a Custodes, the most elite soldier within the Imperium of Man, but they also greatly outnumber all Space Marine factions combined, as every single person that is born as the Night Sentinel becomes a warrior and has all the same physical abilities that other Night Sentinels have. The Space Marines are very limited. On average, when they're not at war, it's like 1,000 people per faction, but they can go up when they're at war. But even if we give each of the factions 100,000 fucking Space Marines, which they don't have that many in each clan, they still wouldn't come close to outnumbering the number of Sentinels. And each of the Sentinels are vastly superior in both arsenal and physical ability. You want to say that Space Marines have more battle experience because they're thousands of years old? No, they're not. We see that in Doom the Dark Ages, Valen is alive. In Doom Eternal, which takes place several billion years later, Valen is still alive. We don't know how long the Night Sentinels live, but they can be billions upon billions of years old of fighting, which means they have way more experience than Space Marines do. And even the absolute longest living Space Marines wouldn't be a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the lifespan that your basic bitch Sentinel is. You want to talk about handheld weapons and how powerful those are? Every single weapon that the Sentinels have utilize a combination of Sentinel energy, Wraith energies, and just straight up magic. The description of a lot of these weapons break reality. The chain shot is literally stated that every time it's shot, it fires a hole through reality itself. The Ravager, which is that weapon that crushes up a human skull and then fires it out in little pieces. Yeah, you think it's just firing skull pieces. No, it's not. How the weapon actually works is that it's crushing up a skull as a sacrifice to activate magic that is within the gun, which, by the way, the gun is also stated to be indestructible. But it activates the magic, then enhances the little pieces of bone that are firing out, making them enchanted, indestructible, magic Sentinel energy projectiles. The Accelerator and Cycler, which are plasma-based weapons in the game, are the creation of the makers and the Sentinels coming together and combining their technology to create superheated plasma that is considerably hotter than any normal plasma can be. It solidifies it, crystallizes it, enchants it with magic, and then when it gets fired at something, it burns through armor and flesh, and then when it's inside of you, it explodes, turning all of your insides to ash. It would normally not be possible to fire this weapon, as the sheer heat of the plasma being shot out would melt any gun, but once again, the gun is enchanted to be immune to heat, which is why the gun does not overheat when you fire it. I could keep going down the list, and while many of these guns are not commonly utilized by Sentinels, many of them are. The Skull Crusher guns are, the plasma guns are, the Impaler is, the rocket launcher is, which, by the way, the rocket launcher uses dragon scales and dragon magic to fire and have massive dragon explosions, I guess. It's all just like bullshit fantasy magic stuff, and it's so far beyond Warhammer 40k and what their shit does that at least least to some extent tries to be grounded. Doom is not interested in being grounded. It's essentially Warhammer on steroids. The fucking Dread Mace, which I'm not bringing up because only Doom Guy has the Dread Mace. The Sentinels don't actually understand that weapon at all. They don't know what it's made out of or where its power comes from, because anytime they send in a Sentinel scientist to go and study the weapon, they go mad and start killing each other and shit, because the Doom Mace actually just has like a passive field of madness manipulation around it at all times, which Doom Guy has to constantly resist while he's using it. These guys are not on the same level. I haven't even talked about the Atlands. If you just take a couple of Night Sentinels, put them in some Atlands and throw them in the Warhammer 40k world, they can dominate whole planets very casually. It's not just their size. The Atlands are powered and utilize Wraith and Sentinel energy, which is literally just chaos magic that negates all durabilities. King Novik's Atlan just has 2 massive cannons on both of its shoulders that just fires one massive concentrated blast of pure Sentinel energy. I haven't even brought the makers into it. That technology is so advanced, the Sentinels believe them to be gods. They were able to make technology, mind control device technology, that overpowered 3 psychic universal gods casually. And technically I should be able to use the makers, because at this point in the story, the makers and Sentinels are on the same team. They support each other. The makers have an invested interest in the Sentinels' success and want to assist them to survive. It's only one maker that betrays them in the Dark Ages. The rest of the makers are all on board with helping them. There really isn't anything not only the Imperium of Man, but really anyone in Warhammer 40k can do. Even if I take the God Emperor of Mankind and chuck him at the Sentinel homeworld, he's still gonna have to deal with Doom Guy. Doom Guy has all the stuff I've been talking about and even more. He can absorb magical energies and use it against the people he's fighting against. What's stopping him from utilizing the warp and increasing his own strength? If he dies, he can just come back to life. Again, he has weapons like the chain shot, that each shot rips open a hole in reality. It's basically a long-range version of Virgil's Yamato from DMC. The only thing that the Imperium Man have are their numbers, but it doesn't matter, because as I said, you can literally send one Sentinel with one Atlan down and he will wipe out literally trillions of fucking people. Because again, if you have a planet with one city that has 100 billion people and that Atlan just goes ham on multiple cities across the planet, it's not gonna take that long to start killing 1 billion people. It'll be very, very quick. Honestly, you could put a Sentinel on foot against all of like the regular bullshit ground troops that Imperium Man have, and him by himself with a melee weapon, a shield, and a gun would likely slaughter through several tens of hundreds of thousands of fucking people. Their guns won't go through his armor. You understand? He will see their shots moving in slow motion and cleave through them as if they're made of fucking tissue paper. If you want to throw psychers and shit down there too, fine. That's not going to change anything. They're still not powerful enough, and Sentinels have arguably better magic than they do. That's even me ignoring the fact the Imperium of Man don't like using psychers, because they consider it blasphemic and even sacrifice like 10,000 of them a day back on Terra. You want to talk about the Adeptus Mechanicus taking the technology of the Sentinels and upgrading it and then utilizing it for themselves against the Sentinels? Okay, that'd be cool. Problem is, the entire Imperium of Man have outcasted the Adeptus Mechanicus and don't like using new technologies. So even if the Adeptus Mechanicus did get their hands on it, which it would be hard because they actually have to kill Sentinels, good luck with that, and then adapt that technology into something useful, the Imperium of Man aren't gonna fucking use it because they think it's blasphemic. You want to do an Exterminatus on one of the Sentinel planets? Go for it. Good luck having your ship not blown out of the fucking sky by crazy chaos Sentinel space magic. The Sentinels created a barrier around their entire universe to keep out demons. You don't think they can do the same thing for a single planet to defend it against invaders? Really? There's no evidence that the Exterminatus can get through a shield powerful enough to cover an entire universe? Look, people always say I hate Warhammer. I don't hate Warhammer. I actually like Warhammer. I think it's a cool universe. Clearly, Doom was heavily inspired by Warhammer. And I like Doom, so why wouldn't I like Warhammer? Problem is that the fans of Warhammer, for some reason, well, specifically scaling fans, I'm not going to say like all Warhammer fans, the scaling fans think that Warhammer is the most powerful, most over-the-top, most crazy bullshit thing ever in fiction, and they compare it to fucking H.P. Lovecraft and all this other crazy shit, and it's like, no, it's not. It would get fucking destroyed, and it's gonna get fucking destroyed by Doom. As I said before, Doom is basically Warhammer 40k on fucking steroids, and the one on steroids is gonna beat the one not on steroids. I'm sorry, that's how it works. Warhammer 40k fucking loses. It really doesn't matter how many more there are. The Sentinels literally fought against Hell for an unspecified amount of time, but we just know it's very, very, very long, and Hell has literally an infinite number of people. There's infinite demons. So the numbers advantage of the Imperium is not going to make much of a difference. They fucking lose. Next up on the list, we have Super Earth from Helldivers. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I have talked at length length about this faction on several occasions. But just to give a quick little explanation to people who have not seen my videos before, basically I kind of hold the Helldivers as pretty similarly to the Imperium of Man. Both factions have a ridiculously high number of people within it, and while we do have more solid numbers for the Imperium than we do Super Earth, the fact of the matter is that we know by the storytelling of Helldivers that they have so many people they can throw billions and billions and billions and billions to their death and not really give a shit. It's very, very, very large numbers we're talking about on both sides. Their weapons are also surprisingly comparable. The basic bitch ammo for the autocannon is about the same size as the ammo for the heavy bolter, and the autocannon is nowhere near the strongest weapons that the Helldivers have. In fact, the flak ammunition for the autocannon is about twice the caliber of ammunition that you would have in a heavy bolter, and just like a heavy bolter, it explodes, except it has a much bigger explosion. That doesn't include things like the quasar cannon, the spear, and all these other stuff. Overall, their handheld weapons on the ground should be relatively comparable. Both factions are capable of completely destroying entire planets, so on and so forth. They are very comparable. The Imperium definitely has physically superior soldiers when it comes to basically any space marine, as well as psychers and things like that. However, your average Helldiver should be physically superior to your average Astra Militarum. So again, it's kind of The reason why I usually put Helldiver above the Imperium of Man is because they're just overall a better put together faction. The Imperium of Man are a bunch of superstitious, crazy fucking people that can't get along. They murder countless of their own people. They hate and rarely use the psychers that they have. They don't want to update their technology in any way. They don't have reliable space travel to travel from one planet to another. Sometimes it takes months and months and months for them to get just right there because the warp is completely unpredictable when it comes to their space travel. They're just not a very good military. There's a reason why this war has been going on for so long and will continue to go on for fucking ever. When you look at someone like Super Earth, they are insanely on point with their scientific advancements. The Illuminate had the technology to chuck a planet-sized black hole across the universe at massively faster than light speeds, destroying several Super Earth planets on the way, and Super Earth, without having any preset technology prepared for something like this to happen, was able to develop technology to fight against it in a couple of weeks. They're insanely good at adapting technology and improving it beyond what it originally was. They took the toxins of the Terminids that was killing their people and burning through all of their titanium alloy armors. They not only made armors that can defend against it, but took that same acid technology, upgraded it, turned it into a gas form, and then turned it against the Terminids, making it capable of burning through their armor that had naturally evolved to adapt to the previous acidic that they were using. There's little examples like this across all of Helldivers. It is constant. So basically, when the Imperium decides to go up against the Sentinels, their traditionalism and superstitious nature will stop them from adapting in the ways of war to overcome their enemies, because that's literally what it's like in Warhammer 40k, whereas Helldivers, while I don't think they're going to win, they have a chance because they will be able to constantly adapt technology to possibly catch up to the Sentinels. Do I think they'll actually do it? No, because they don't have magic. They're shown really good at adapting technology and science, but magic is a whole other animal. And even if they did adapt their magic, most of the weapons the Sentinels use, normal people can't fire. Even enhanced people would not be able to fire. I mean, think about this for a second. The weapons that the Sentinels fire have to be made with indestructible materials and enchanted with magic just so they can fire the gun without the force of the blowback destroying the fucking gun. We don't have that problem on Earth. The problem that we have is that when we shoot a gun, the blowback is gonna hurt us. We don't even have to think about the possibility of it blowing the fucking gun up. That's not an existing problem. That's how stable guns are. Do you have any idea how much force would have to come out of that gun in order to endanger the stability of the fucking gun in a single shot? I don't. It doesn't exist. It's not a problem. There's not a chance in hell a Helldiver will be able to fire this gun. If they were able to adapt the technology, they would have to stick it on the side of a mech or something, which they do have and can do, I suppose. But you still have the magic issue, and I don't think they'll really be able to adapt magic. And honestly, even if they did have the mechs, that's not going to stop the Sentinels from blitzing the fuck out of them and chopping the mechs in half like it's no big deal. They still have weapons that can go through all of their armor and shielding that can protect from all of their weapons. And the fact that they are not going to be in mechs means they're going to be a lot more mobile than the Helldivers are. Also, I think there's a limit to how fast they would be able to do this. Like, maybe they can adapt some certain guns and things like this and maybe make smaller versions or attach those guns onto the side of mechs, but will they be able to make things that could fight against an Atlan? How long will that take? I imagine that's gonna take more than weeks to make an entire army of fucking Atlan 30-story mechs. Like, I think there's a limit. Overall, I don't think they can win. They're just not physically fit enough, and there's just too many unknowns here about what they can adapt and what they can't, since we're introducing magic into the world. So I do think Super Earth will do fractionally better than the Imperium of Man, but still, at the end of the day, they're gonna fail. Last up, but certainly not least, we have the Sentients from Warframe. So to explain the Sentients, a long time ago, before the start of the Warframe universe as we know it currently, what the timeline is and what you do in the game, there was a race of people called the Orkin. They ruled the entire universe. They predate humanity and all that different kind of stuff, and they created this crazy cool like biological technological race known as the Sentients. Nobody in the current time of Warframe understand what the fuck the Sentients are, how they were created. They don't understand their technology. Even when they get their hands on their technology, they can only salvage and sort of utilize it as it exists. They can't create it themselves. It's just so over the top advanced and crazy and awesome that nobody can really do anything about it. And the thing that makes the Sentients so dangerous, and honestly the most dangerous thing in all of Warframe, is the fact that they can adapt to any situation that happens to them, and they adapt very rapidly. Over the course of a single fight, they can adapt 4, 5, 6, 7 times and just keep adapting to whatever kind of damage is done to them, theoretically infinitely, with no limits. So what were to happen if the entire sentient army was to appear in Argent Nur to try and invade against the Sentinels? How would that go? And well, obviously they're last. This is by far the closest fight. The fact that they could just keep adapting to whatever the Sentinels do is absolutely going to be super useful, kind of. Canonically, in the Warframe universe, the Sentients can adapt to basically everything that is done to them, except for Void. Void is essentially this alternate universe filled with this crazy amount of like chaos energy. We don't really get a clear explanation of what the Void is, but it's very heavily implied to just be chaos taken form. It can do whatever it wants, and it just sort of does it randomly and without any real rhyme or reason to it. Most people who play Warframe don't even try to understand it, and they just call it bullshit space magic. But if you actually read the lore, it very heavily implies that it's actually more than just bullshit space magic. It has a little bit of an explanation, and it does seem to be like the literal concept of chaos made into an energy source. This also would very heavily explain why the Sentients can't adapt to it, as how do you adapt to an ever-changing source that isn't like one thing? It's chaos. It's whatever it wants to be. It makes sense that something like that would be very difficult, if not even impossible, to actually adapt to. And if this is starting to sound pretty familiar, it should. As I've already said earlier in this video, Sentinel energy and Wraith energy, which is the energy source used by the Sentients in order to fight all of their enemies, does come from the cosmic realm and is revealed to essentially be chaos energy. The Sentinels are essentially using the only thing that we're even aware is capable of damaging the Sentients in any real way. It's just kind of bad luck on the Sentients' part that the Sentinel energy works so similarly to that of Void energy. And while you might use the argument that Sentinel guns don't really seem to work all that much like Void energy in gameplay when you actually use the Sentinel guns, I would argue that the guns that use Void damage in Warframe don't really seem to behave in the same way they do in the lore and the gameplay either. When you look at what Sentinel and Wraith energy is and where it comes from, which is the cosmic realm, and what those chaos energies do there, it seems pretty clear that they're basically the same thing as the Void energy. When you go to the cosmic realm, it's specifically stated that the chaos energies there, which again is where Wraith energy comes from, has messed with the universe so much that gravity, space, and physics just don't act the way it should. You've got things like ponds and lakes being on the walls that you can walk into and swim around in. You can go in buildings and rooms where the layouts just don't make sense and can't possibly exist. This is all from the effects of chaos energy, which is the origin of Wraith and Sentinel energy. I mean, shit, the chain shot is stated in the lore to use these exact same chaotic energies and has the ability to rip a hole in reality every single time it's fired. There is no evidence whatsoever that the Sentients can adapt to something like that. Now, having said that, just because the Sentients can't adapt to it, does that mean that they're going to lose to the Sentinels? No, it just means they're going to be on the same playing field. They're not going to be able to adapt to the damage the Sentinels do to them, but the Sentinels still have to actually beat them in a fight. And honestly, Sentients are just far more powerful than Sentinels are. Some of them are capable of fighting Tenno on par. And while Tenno's power levels range wildly, the strongest of Tenno are capable of destroying meteors the size of planets and stopping time with physical strength, which I don't even know how that's possible. But Sentients do have the physical ability to compete with that. But when it comes down to physicals, it's actually a pretty decent matchup, as the Sentinels have weapons that can completely negate the durability of the Sentients and wipe them out in one hit, as well as being considerably faster, but the Sentients are considerably stronger and have weapons that use void damage that is very comparable to that of the weapons that Sentinels use. Now, void damage doesn't negate durability. There's nothing that really shows or states that it does that, but it is a very powerful energy, and it does kind of bypass defenses to a certain extent. So overall, do I think the Sentients can overcome the Sentinels? Probably. Their strongest enemies are going to be really, really tough for the Sentinels to actually fight against. Really, the only question is whether or not the Sentinels are skilled enough to overcome a force that is significantly stronger than themselves. And honestly, that might not even come into play all that much, given that this is a war that will likely be fought in long range with guns and shit, not necessarily melee, although melee is a big part of it. Like, both sides use melee weapons, so it'll probably be a mix of both melee and shooting long range. Honestly, both sides could kill each other. So, I don't know, it's anyone's game. This is actually a really, really good matchup. This might be a 50-50. Yeah, you know what? This is one of those ones where I'm just gonna kick it down to you guys in the comment section. You guys let me know who you think gonna win. Try and rationalize it in your own brain. The way I see it is that they could both damage each other and they both excel in different areas, but overall it's a pretty solid match, and neither seem to be more technologically advanced than the other or have more powerful weapons than the other. And in terms of physicals, it seems like it's speed on the Sentinel side and strength on the Sentient side. So yeah, I like this one a lot. This is a good one. But that's going to be all from me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?